Thank you for joining us this morning. My name is Irene Andrew, and I'm a program officer with the Mass Culture Council, and I'm joined by my colleagues, Miranda Cook, Mina Kim, Justina Crawford, Charlotte Cutter, and Luis Cotto. So today we're going to kind of give you an overview of the regional presentation that we did at the regional meetings that we held over the summer. For some of you, this may sound a bit redundant. I'm really sorry about that, but please stay tuned because towards the end, we're going to provide feedback and report out on what we learned from those meetings. So this presentation, and again, if you attended any of the regional meetings, this is going to look a bit or sound a bit familiar. We're going to go over the community initiative, the Mass Culture Council, our investment. You can actually ignore that bullet point, the Power Culture core principles, and the breakout sessions. So some of you may know that last fall as an agency, we went through a pretty rigorous strategic plan. And out of the strategic plan came our 4 core principles that are driving a lot of the work that we're doing here at the agency, as well as the creation of the community initiative. So the community initiative essentially is comprised of 3 programs that are essentially working at the core of communities. So it's the Local Culture Council program, which is our oldest program here. There's a Local Culture Council in every community across the state, and it provides funding. There's the Cultural District Initiative that we have, I believe we have 44 currently, 45, I'm sorry, we just designated another cultural district, Great Barrington. So there's 45 cultural districts across the state, and that works with the municipality and kind of putting culture right at the center, economic development right at the center of culture. And then there's the festival program, which is about 3 years old, and that's working and providing funding to public programming. Also out of our regional, also out of our strategic plan and the community initiative is that we decided we were going to take a regional approach. To better understand what's happening on a local level, we understood that we need to also understand what's happening on a regional level. So here's kind of a breakout of how we are assigned by regions. You'll see that I have this dusty green color, which is Greater Springfield, Greater Boston, not including Boston, and Nantucket. Justina has, do you want to speak on regions you have, Justina?
I have the Berkshire, North Central, and also Plymouth.
Charlotte?
I have Franklin County, South Central Massachusetts, and Cape Cod.
Louise?
I'm Louise. I'll be working with Greater Merrimack Valley and Metro West.
Hi everyone, it's Mina, and I have Hampshire County, Norfolk, Boston, and Bristol County.
And Lisa Simmons, our program manager, isn't here today, but she has Boston, Martha's Vineyard. Yeah. Okay. Sorry about that.
Getting a little feedback. Okay.
Okay. And also on the map, you'll see in that light kind of, what color would you call that?
Like a gray pink.
Gray pink color, or dust, is like a dusty pink color, are the culture districts right now that have been designated.
So on this slide, you can see the 7 working groups that we have at the Mass Cultural Council. And so while we were on these regional meetings across the state, we realized that usually people were familiar with 1 or 2 initiatives. And so we wanted to make sure that everyone really understood the full range of programs and resources that we have to the agency. And so you can see the community initiative is one of the 7 there, and then the other programs really encompass everything from ranging from artists, support for artists, individual artists, support for artists' professional development, to the planning and development of cultural facilities, to the Cultural Facilities Fund, the cultural investment portfolio focuses on helping cultural nonprofits with assessing their organizational stability. And then, of course, we have many youth programs through the Creative Youth Development. And then universal participation is really about familiarizing people with accessibility. And this is accessibility of all types, socioeconomic as well as physical accessibility, to really allow broader and greater access for all. So these are the 4 Power of Culture core principles. The first one is that the power of culture enriches communities through the support of entities and funding of programs that elevate the quality of life and well-being of all communities. And so this is really about our support for community-based programming. The local cultural councils, just through the local cultural council program, provide about $3 million annually through different 2 different organizations, as well as artists and schools and other nonprofits. The second one is that the power of culture drives growth and opportunity by deepening understanding of cultural-led economic development and support of cultural entrepreneurship. And so I don't know if people have seen research, but there is research that shows that boosting cultural production can increase local GDP permanently. And if you look at the white paper that we released last year, there's a figure in there where we have that there is a $2.3 billion economic impact just through cultural nonprofit organizations in the state of Massachusetts.
Mina, just to jump in, just to contribute an example of how we've been doing that, how we've been advancing inclusion here at the Mass Cultural Council, is our EBT Card to Culture program. And since the initiative launched in October of 2017, we've actually had 150 organizations enroll and participate in granting free or deeply discounted admission to EBT card holders. An example of one of our participating orgs is actually the New England Aquarium, which has had 30,000 first-time visitors just between July and mid-March of this past year. So pretty cool stuff.
And the next core principle is to empower a new generation of youth. We have a cultural youth development program, but we also, with the LTC program, put in actually more money over time than our education program. So CYD, Creative Youth Development, has put in $14 million over the past 24 years. And the Local Cultural Council program has actually put in more than that over time, which is a really big number.
Okay, number 4, empowers a new generation of leaders through youth development that cultivate creative, independent-minded youth. Our CYD, or Creative Youth Development Program, has invested $14 million in 60 programs statewide over almost 25 years. So that is an example of how we've been investing, in a new generation of youth leaders and creative.
So this is something that we came up with. We're calling it the Roadmap to the Power of Culture. And so we really wanted to kind of show people the essential components that we think are important to consider when building and bolstering the power of culture. And so at the very beginning, we have the why. Why does this work matter to you, and why does it matter to your communities? And so the first sort of stop in the roadmap is really developing and connecting with your personal narrative. Everyone, I believe, who is involved in arts, culture, and community development, they have some sort of origin story that's rooted in personal experience that really helps them connect to the work that they do. And so if you're familiar with speakers like Simon Sinek and Marshall Gans, you know that they really, ascribe to the value of really developing your personal and public narrative to allow others to connect better to the work that you do. And so, of course, like after you are able to convey your personal connection, also think about how you bring those values into your professional work, and that how that relates to your goals with your local communities, as well as how that connects to the regional work that you're doing, that everyone's doing across the state. The second portion of the map focuses on the partners. So identifying who is in the room is really important, just to understand better who all is involved in the work that you're doing. Also, importantly, is identifying who is missing. And so, you know, there are always people who groups would like to have on their team as they achieve their goals around the power of culture. But then when you assemble, you know, who's in the room and who is missing, also think about who is actually missing from the conversation and from the decision making that happens in the work that you do in your communities. So those stops are identifying the current partners and potential partners. The next stop really focuses on identifying your assets. And so this goes to how are you networked? So you've identified the people who are involved in the work. What is the social capital that exists among those partners that are currently networked? And what do you need in order to, let's say, if you want to boost your political power or your marketing capacity, who else should you involve and connect with? And then we have cultural assets. What are your cultural assets? So really thinking about what you value as a community around cultural development, and then seeing how those cultural assets are connected to public infrastructure. And so, so once you figure out what is needed in order to sustain and really improve the cultural assets, go back and figure out how you can improve the social capital necessary to do so. And then the last portion is around your vision. So what do you want to achieve, and how are you going to get what you want? And so laying out the goals, identifying and laying out the goals, as well as what you need in order to achieve your goals. And then, of course, creating an action step to lay out the direction of how you are going to collectively foster the power of culture. And then you have the dotted arrow that goes back to start, because, of course, you know, individuals change, partners change, and the political and social context of different communities change. And so it's always important to see this as an iterative process. And these were just some questions that we asked to guide some of the discussions of the regional meeting. So what does the power of culture mean to you? What has been helpful in developing your power of culture? And what do you want to achieve using your power of culture?
All right, so some of the takeaways that we got from the meeting, I'm not sure how many of you actually went to these meetings, so if you're listening because you went to a meeting or you didn't make it, I'll still give you kind of an overview on what members learned and what we learned. So the people that attended the meeting said they discovered that they need to share information with each other. We need an online platform where they can learn from each other's experiences and share information. In terms of the cultural councils, a lot of them still struggle to find members, so they need to leverage relationships that already exist. A takeaway as well was that personal experiences shape and inform the power of culture in each group, and they need to build new partnerships and support artists in ways that we haven't tried before. In terms of what people would like to see from the second round of regional meetings this fall, there are a few people that suggested inviting leaders from the municipality to join into the conversation so they can find out a little bit more about how they can help and how they're connected. They'd like us to discuss more in detail those MCC grants that we offer and the programs and resources that we offer. So we're working on a one sheet that's a little bit easier to digest and hand out to other people. In the past, we've also had meet and greet for the Mass Cultural Council, and we're planning on doing that in the future as well to travel to different parts of the state. There was also some feedback on wanting more information on resources for artists, especially on financial resources. In terms of what type of help would be important right now, this is kind of going back to before, but it would be helpful to see a list of Mass Cultural Council resources in one place. Visibility is always a struggle, trying to find ways to get the message out about who you are and what you do, and who we are and what we do. And more examples on public art projects and working with artists. So that was kind of a theme through these meetings, was supporting artists and finding resources for them. So in terms of what people did after those meetings, they were in the summer, so a lot of the response was that they're preparing to ramp up for the fall. So we'll see what happens, after this month. But otherwise, there's been a lot of spreading the word based on organizations or people that they talk to during those meetings and making those connections. I see that someone joined the EBT card program, which is great. And they're working a little bit more on connecting their social media and presenting the arts and culture happenings in their area now that they have a better connection.
Thank you, Charlotte. So that's some of the feedback and what we learned from these meetings. And going forward, we will be holding another set of meetings in the spring where we hope to provide something tangible that you can walk away from that speaks to those themes there. So now we want to open up the conversation. If you have any questions, please feel free to write them in the chat section and we can answer them. Is there anything that anyone else would like to add while we're waiting for questions?
I think part of the reason why we did this sort of statewide for regional meetings was, of course, not only to meet you guys who are on the ground doing work in your communities and speak firsthand what's been going on, but also to ask you personally, what does the power of culture mean to you? How does this messaging resonate with you personally and professionally? And I think that is always a really interesting and expansive discussion just around the language, what power of culture means to us collectively and, to some of our constituents as individuals.
So if there are no questions, I think we'll end this now. And so we recorded this conversation, and so we'll make this available to everyone. And in the meantime, if you have any questions that pop up later on, feel free to contact us. There's all of our contact information. And then I know that in the next few months, we're going to be thinking about convening the cultural community again in the spring, and so more to come on that. Thank you, everyone, for joining.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.